Hi guys, it is me, Carmen Post, checking in from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Good morning to those of you that are in the States, to my friends that are on this side of the world. It is our afternoon. I hope you guys had an amazing day. Again, my name is Carmen Post. I am a wife to my husband Trent Post for 18 years. Had to think and make sure that's okay, right? I am a mom to three amazing kids. I have a 17-year-old, we have a 5-year-old, and we have a 12-year-old. I am also the founder and co-executive director of our nonprofit, Make Your Mark, with my husband Trent. I am a certified Fast Away to Fat Loss coach, and I am an advocate for the poor. I'm an advocate for the orphan. I'm an advocate for the street kids. And so that's just a little bit about me. Pretty much everything for my life rolls out of 3Fs. It's my fitness, my faith, and forgiveness. And so today, this video topic is going to be on faith. I did a couple videos previously, and it's going to be titled The Letters in Red. And so I'm going to read just the letters in red that Jesus spoke. Today it's going to be in John chapter 5. And so that's what I want to focus on. I have not been to seminary school. I am just a girl that's radically been changed by Jesus. And I love to share that with people, whether you believe in Jesus or whether you don't believe in Jesus. When a life is changed, no one can deny that a life has been changed. And so today I get on here, I'm really just excited to talk to you about John chapter 5, verses 1 through 15, and just focusing on the letters in red. Like, what did Jesus say to us? And I want it to be in a very practical way. I don't have big words to use. I don't have, I'm not comparing a lot of things together. I'm just going to go by what Jesus said, like the letters in red, the words in red. What does he want us to hear? And how can we apply it to our life today? That's my only goal. And so I hope you guys will stick around for this video. So let's start in John chapter 5. And so the first thing that Jesus says in red, it says, "Do you want to get well?" Jesus says, "Do you want to get well?" I believe that Jesus asked you, and he asked me that question all the time. He wants to know, do you want to get well? A lot of us, like, we will talk the talk, right? Like, we want our lives to be different. We want our marriages to be different. We want certain things to happen in our life. But when it comes down to us really wanting to be well, we really don't want it that bad because we're not willing to give up the things that we need to in order to being that wellness, to live in that wellness. And so again, Jesus asks us, do you want to be well? And I'm going to ask you, do you want to be well? Like, do you really want to be well? It's easy to assume that all of us would say, yes, I want to be well. I want to be well. But the reality is that many of us don't. Like, we like being stuck in our sin. Now, if you ask one of my friends that is fighting cancer or is fighting a life-threatening illness if they want to be well, guess what they are going to say? They are absolutely, without a doubt, going to say, yes, they want to be well. However, if you ask someone that isn't dealing with an illness, if they want to be well, they're gonna say, yes, I want to be well. But the reality is they're not willing to do the hard work to allow Jesus to come in and make us well. So a lot of us talk the talk. We say we want to be well, but we want to be well with all of our junk. And so a lot of us, like, we're holding on to our sin. And when we hold on to our sin, guess what? You're not going to get well. You may have like glimpses of little hope and wellness, but I'm going to tell you what, if you are holding on to your sin, you will not get well. There's no way. Like, it contradicts everything that Christ came and he died for. And so when Jesus says, do you want to get well? And you say yes, the action part is back on you. You have to be willing to walk away from your sin. And guys, I'm not talking about, like, sin can be so disguised, right? Like we can put all these sins in order of, these are bad, worse than, this. But the reality is sin is sin. Like sin is equal all around. So some of us are dealing with materialism, right? Like we want to get well, but gosh, we just want to go spend that money. Like we want to go buy some more clothes. We want to go buy some more shoes. And that's what makes us feel good in the moment. So although I'm telling you, Lord, that I want to get well, I'm not willing to not go buy that object, whatever it is, to make me feel well. Some of us are dealing with pornography. Like we will sit here and we will tell God, yes, like Jesus, I want to get well. Like you're asking me if I want to get well, and I'm saying, yes, I want to get well. But as soon as I have this phone in my hand, I don't have my phone to put it in my hand, but I'm going to click. I'm going to click on an image. I'm going to click on a video that I shouldn't click on. I know that this is jading my mind. I know that it's ruining my marriage. I know that it's ruining my family, but I'm still going to choose to watch pornography. And so, do you want to get well? If you want to get well, you have to walk away from your sin. You have to be willing to get accountability for when you're watching pornography. You need to get things on your phone where you can't look at pornography. Whatever your sin is, you can't get well and hold on to your sin. It's not going to happen. And so again, Jesus says, do you want to get well? Some of us struggle with drug addictions and we have so much pain. We have so much hurt. Guys, this was me before I met Christ. Like I had so much pain. It was so much easier for me to be high than to feel my life, like to feel the consequences of what people had done to me and how they had hurt me. And so it was easier for me just to get high than to feel. It was easier for me to be numb than to feel my reality. Okay, so some of us are in that moment right now. Like Jesus is saying, do you want to get well? And you're saying, yes, Jesus, I want to get well, but you're smoking your dope, you're snorting your cocaine, you're eating your pills, you're shooting up your heroin, whatever it is. It could even be an alcohol addiction. Like Jesus is asking you if you want to get well, and you're saying you want to get well because you are miserable here on earth, but you're not willing to let go of what it is that you need to let go to get well. And so again, we assume that everybody says, yes, I want to get well, Lord, I want to get well. But the reality is most of us are stuck. We're holding on to our sin and we want to get well, but I'm not willing to give that to you, God. Some of us are so consumed with our hate, guys. It is easier for us to hate. It is easier for us to hate a race. It's easier for us to hate someone that has a different sexuality. It's easier for us to hate someone that is not of our nationality, and we feel like we just have to hold on to that hate. And Jesus is saying, like he said here, do you want to get well? And we're all like, yes, God, we want to get well, but we're not willing to let go of our sin. You cannot get well and have hate in your heart. Like it's not going to happen. And so we have to learn to let go of that hate. We cannot get well if we're hating people. Another thing, maybe it's unforgiveness. Guys, this is where the Lord shook me to my feet. I mean, I was just on the ground, remade because of forgiveness. Like I was holding on to unforgiveness. I hated the people that had hurt me. I hated my dad. I hated the people that sexually abused me as a child. Like I had so much hate and distrust in my heart. And it was easier for me to not forgive them than to forgive them. And so I thought that if I forgave someone, it gave them like a pat on the back, like, oh, it's okay, don't worry what you did. But really, forgiveness was for me, guys. It had nothing to do with the other person. Of course, God will always use our forgiveness of people to build the people that hurt us as well. But forgiveness is about you. It is about your growth. It is about your healing. And it is about you getting well. And if we have this unforgiveness in our heart, guys, we are going to be in bondage. Like our minds, our bodies, our soul are going to be paralyzed by our past, by what people have done to us to hurt us. Some of us have been raped, and it's like, why should I forgive someone that hurt me? And I get that, but why shouldn't you? It's not about the person that did it to you. It is about you being free for the first time in your life, guys. When I was able to forgive my dad, I was free for the first time in my whole life. And that is when everything started changing for me. And so for me, like when forgiveness was birthed, it was just like this, I was this beautiful like flower, like blossoming and turning into who I was actually created to be. And so as Jesus says, do you want to get well? Well, if you're holding on to if you're holding holding on to unforgiveness, you cannot get well. Let's look at the next words that Jesus says, okay? In John chapter 5, he says, get up and pick up your mat. Okay, that seems pretty easy, right? Get up and pick up your mat. How many times has Jesus told you, how many times have you heard God tell you to get up and pick up your mat? Okay, maybe he's not saying it in the form of a mat, but how many times do you know that God is telling you to do something and you are not doing it? A lot of times, maybe for some of us, it's this huge job change. Like we know that we're not supposed to stay in our job that we're at now. Because, and this is a job that creates great security for us, and we are secure and we're stable and we are able to provide for our families and we're feeling good. And God's saying, no, you need to go to another job because I have something different for you to do. Maybe it's that. Maybe it is he wants to move you. He wants to move your family from one neighborhood to another so that he can use you. Maybe he wants to move you across the world to go love on someone, and you're hearing him say, get up and pick up your mat and go and walk. He wants you to get up. He's giving you a command. He wants you to get up. He wants you to pick up your mat, and he wants you to walk. He doesn't want you to get up and stay there. He doesn't want you to get up and then sit back down again. He tells you to get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And so maybe that comes in the form of your finances. Maybe God's telling you to give, and he wants you to give like in this great big way. He wants you to get up, he wants you to give, and then he wants you to be okay with it because he asked you to do it. For some of us, it's simply just obeying what he's telling us to do in our ear. Some of us, I know you've had these things where you hear something and you know it's of God because it wouldn't be of you, right? That was me when with forgiveness with my dad. I kept hearing this voice, not an audible voice, but I kept hearing this over and over and over again. And it was like, you need to forgive your dad. You need to forgive your dad. You need to forgive your dad. And guess what? I didn't want to forgive my dad, but I knew it wasn't me because I would never choose to forgive my dad. And that's one of those things where God said, get up, walk, and take your mat. So what is your get up, walk, and take the mat that God is asking you to do? Sorry, get up, take your mat, and walk. What is that he's asking you to do? You know it. Write it down and be obedient. God speaks to us in so many different ways through different people. And each one of our stories is going to be so, so different, and it's going to look so, so different. But God is going to say, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. What is that in your life today? Pray about it. Identify it. Share it with me in the comments. Tell me, what is it that God is asking you to do that you know that you need to do? Maybe it could be something super small. It could be so, so small. It could be so, so big. Share with us. Don't be afraid to go, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. The next thing that Jesus says in John chapter 5, it says, see, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. Okay, so this is heavy, guys. This is heavy. I know that all of us that call ourselves believers or not, we have been in this moment, right? So we get into these moments and we get into desperation and we're calling out to God, we're crying out to God, we just hit bottom and we just need God to show up and show out. And we're praying and we're praying and we're praying for God just to answer. And then all of a sudden he does. And you know it's God because he's the only one that heard your prayer, that would understand, that could answer in such a tangible way. And in that moment, you feel like the most precious person in the world because this earth, it is huge, it is big. There's so many things going on. And in that moment, God answered your prayer, right? So we have all been there and we get all excited and we talk about it and we even tell some of our friends about it. And I have so many people, so many of my friends that do this. I'm guilty of it myself, guys. And so God answers us. We pray this radical prayer. God answers us. We get excited and we're on these spiritual highs and we are like this with God. We're like, yes, God loves me. God cares for me. I know he heard me. And then all of a sudden life happens, right? All of a sudden life happens. And then we kind of start creeping back into our old ways. Maybe we start hanging out with some people we shouldn't hang around that aren't the best influence. And then we're tiptoeing, right? We're like, yeah, okay, I like this a little bit. And then all of a sudden, we are on the other side of the fence. We have got our legs and our hips deep into sin again, okay? All of us have been there. And so it says, see, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen. Like those are the words of Jesus. And so so we start sinning again, right? So we went from this, like we're close with God, we're cool. And then all of a sudden we've forgotten what God has done for us and we feel like we can handle life on our own. And then all of a sudden, like we're feeling this guilt and we're feeling this shame and we're feeling like, oh my gosh, like how could God love me? Why would I go back to him and ask him again? Because like I'm so unworthy. But here's the thing, guys, is we're the ones that left God. God did not leave you. If you were sitting there today and you feel like God has left you, that's a lie. God hasn't left you. You might have turned your back on God, but God did not leave you. God does not leave us ever, even when we are up to our heads in our sin. Like God wants us to call out to him. He wants us to remember who he was and what he did before, okay? So those are the things when God says, see, you are well again. So he's heard your prayer. He's answered our prayer. Stop sinning or something worse may happen. And so some of you guys need to hear that today. You need to know that God has answered your prayer. Like you know that you met him, that he answered your prayer, and you have gone to the other side again. You have tiptoed back into your sin. You've tiptoed back into your lifestyle, whatever that is, and now you're just feeling shameful. And so the word of God says, you better stop or something worse may happen. Okay, guys? Like, this is the gospel. This is Jesus talking to us. This isn't me making up something. So we have to take the words of Jesus super, super serious. And so what is Jesus telling you that he wants you to remember all the days of your life so that you always know that he is there. He is there with you. He is there for you. Guys, I have a list of things written down of ways that Christ has answered me, he has radically changed my life. I mean, Trent has a list of things where God has specifically answered us. We go back to them and reread them over and over and over again. Sometimes, guys, we just need to be reminded of what God has done before to keep us on the right path, because we know that God is faithful and we know that God would do it again, okay? So if you have gotten to the place where you prayed to God, you asked him a specific question, he answered you, now you're in a season where you're walking away, you're tiptoeing in your sin, you need to stop or something worse may happen. That is what Jesus tells us in the gospel. Those are the words in red. And so, again, Jesus is asking you guys, I'm just going to wrap up this video. Jesus is asking you again, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Like, don't just say you want to get well and do this little like, yes, God, I want to get well, and I need you to do this. The reality is he's going to require you to give him some action if you want to get well. You're going to have to let go of the porn. You're going to have to let go of materialism. You're going to have to let go of the hate. Like, if you want to get well, you're going to have to let go of something, okay? So if you're not getting well, and I'm not talking about in the physical form with illnesses, I'm talking about in the spiritual form. If you are not getting well, then you need to ask yourself, what is God asking me to let go so that I can get well? Next, Jesus said, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. What do you know that you know that you know that you know that you are supposed to be doing right now? In your family, in your job, in your church, in your community. It doesn't matter where you are. Like, God is always calling us to do something. So get up, pick up your mat, and walk. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. Don't doubt what God has asked you to do. Remember what God's done for you before, and let that empower you to get up, pick up your mat, and walk in power and purpose to change the world around you. Next, the last thing that Jesus says to us is, see, you are well again. See, I've answered your prayer. Remember when you were crying all night long and then you heard my voice and we had this intimate moment and we were together and you didn't question who I was as your father? Like, do you remember that? But now you tiptoe back in your sin and you need to stop or something worse will happen. I hope you guys are super encouraged with this word on this Temple Talk Tuesday. I hope you have an amazing day. Next week, we will dive into John chapter 5. The rest probably, there's a lot. So maybe, 16 through 30. Maybe that's what we'll hit on next week. Or maybe I'll just break it down in a little bit again. So I hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday. Drop me some words. Tell me Were you encouraged by this video? Like, tell me if God speaks something to you throughout the week. Tell me later if you picked up your mat and you trusted God and you walked in full force. Like, tell me how God used this video to speak, to encourage you. And the main thing is, God, know God's voice, know God's whisper, know He's real. Remember what He's done for you, and be ready to act. Be ready to respond, because our God is an interactive God. He is not some faraway God. He is an interactive God, and He's waiting for you to respond to what you already know to do. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing day. Ciao.